Hello, everybody. Hey, today, tonight, whatever time you're hearing this is a great time for story time. So, what would it be like to have a moustache? A moustache, like the moose in this book, called Moosetache by Margie Palatini. This book is illustrated by Henry Cole, so let's take a look and find out more about what it's like to deal with a moustache. Good thing, bad thing? Let's see. Well, let's turn the page. You see a shearing device, sometimes used for cutting hair really close to the head, kind of like my hair is, really close. Oh, it's because I don't have any. But I don't have a moustache either. But what if I could have a moustache? Let's go further. Take a look. We have on this page what looks like part of a moustache. And there's a brush. Look at the legs on that brush, all the bristles. The legs can't get any grip. The mouth is wide open. And look over here at the comb. It just doesn't know what to do. Its bristles are bent. Its legs are in the air trying to get some purchase, meaning something to hold on to. And then we have the scissors over here. My, that scissors has a big job to do. Let's dive into this story and see what happens. There is our moose. And so, beginning at the top, Moose had a problem, a horrible, hairy, prickly problem. It grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip, a moustache. Now, not a few spare hairs or shy little stubble, no mere weak wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. No siree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache. But a moustache that was burly, surly, mangy mess, and it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked and he tweezed, he even clipped, snipped, and teased, but his combs were still cowards. His brushes rebelled, his scissors simply surrendered. See the little flag of surrender on the scissors? Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely crimping his style. He was a great hoofer. What is a hoofer? A dancer? But he could barely bop and hip hop with a moustache going flip flop. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all those whiskers in his way. Oh, is he getting some hair in his food? That would be frustrating if you were cooking and got hair in your food. And he was a daring skier. But how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? After days and days of much serious thought, Moose got an idea. He crossed some hair here, he crossed some hair there, and he tied his moustache around his neck. A moose scarf seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. Wow, look at how well he wound that moose dash around his neck into a moose scarf. But then his moustache got knotted and mangled and horribly tangled, and those hundreds of hairs still prickled and tickled. Worse, Moose could barely take a breath with all that moustache wrapped around his neck. So Moose untied, unwrapped, unknotted, and gulped in some fresh air. Look how relieved he looks. And I like that fan. How does a moose hold a fan? He got another idea. He parted some hair this way. He parted some hair that way. He heaped all that moustache on top of his head. Moustachioed. Antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. Until a squadron of squirrels and one very nosy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, furrowed in and burrowed out. Needless to say, it became quite crowded up there on Moose's head, and heavy and messy. Wow, look at Moose's head. A welcome mat. A place to get the mail. A place to have a barbecue. A place to snack on some peanuts. Oh, and what's that squirrel trying to do? That squirrel trying to get a cherry out of his drink. And those squirrels underneath the lounge chair. I think they want some pretzels, don't you? And also, it was very, very noisy. The squirrely chitting and chatting, squeals and squawks woke Moose every morning before the crack of dawn, and that gopher was giving the moose one hairy moustache, or headache, one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep. He needed his rest. He needed his privacy. Moustachioed antlers? Nuts, said the moose. So he unparted, unpiled, untwisted, untwined, and said adios to the hairy horns. I think those little animals will have to find someplace else to live now. But now what? What? The miserable moose took hold of a hunk of hair, and he wrestled it, then roped it, then tethered, tied, tamed, a moose tail. Now, that was so simple. That was so easy. That was not so perfectly perfect. Talk about a dizzy do. Moose didn't know what, if he was coming or going. Backward, forward, this way, that. He didn't know which end was which. Moose had to bail on the tail. And so he thought, and thought, and thought some more, but no idea was a worthy winner. Braids were a bother. A moustache sweater? Too sweltering. Net? Not. Poor Moose. His problem was truly terrible, unbearable, just downright sad. He felt so alone. He didn't know what else to do. Then, call it fate, call it destiny, it was probably dumb luck. But one day, Moose tripped on his moustache and just had no time to duck. Oomph! Pardon me, they both said as they bumped. Then they blinked, then they stared, and their hearts went thumpa-thumpa. Oh, a lady moose. And look, her bracelets match her necklace. She was a moose with a bouffant so bodacious, outrageous, well, it was just plain old big. Hair after hair piled higher than high. A skyscraping dew of glorious curls, a tower of swirling twists and twirls. She was simply splendid, stupendous, absolutely superb. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did what she did to get such a do. Miss Moose winked and then whispered, "Just a little glue." So she helped. He fearlessly plunged a hoof into a fat pot of white gooey goop. And carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped, and they plopped, they pasted, and they pressed. They coaxed and curled every truly unruly wayward whisker. Around and around they tweaked and twirled those horrible hairs until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous winding wave of marvelous moustache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, "Is that really me?" Look at, she's doing a great job. A little bit on the floor there. I'll have to watch the shoes before he steps on the carpet. Okay. With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped. They skied downhill, even uphill, and their cooking was hot, hot, hot. Look at that. I wonder what they're making. Ah, hot mustard, chocolate mousse mix, carrots. I wonder how they're going to mix all of that together. It's a moostery. So, of course, it wasn't long after that Moose and his Moosetache and his beautiful bride fox-trotted and tangoed and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish. And with hearts heaped with love and pots filled with goop, they both sighed, "I do glue," and promised never to part. Get it? They glued and never part because glue sticks together. Look at how happy they look. They're even sharing the rose between both of their mouths. And finally, it was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. And look, they had a vacation at Niagara Falls, and their dews look wonderful. They have a baby moose, and they have a family photo together. And so, that was a lot of fun. What would you do if you had a Moosetache? That was fun reading. Thank you.